welcome back everybody to another edition of the Club Cool podcast. I am your host, Barrett Dudley, coming to you live from the Washed Media Studios, joined on the other side of the table by Mr. Phil Battaglia. What's up, Phil?
What's up?
The one and only Chill Phil. And we have a special guest today as well. He's joining us from sunny Los Angeles, California, although I don't know if it's actually very sunny there right now. It might just be filled with smoke and haze and wildfires. It's Pat Allen, the head of and creator of a brand called Uniform. Pat, am I saying the brand right? I know that there's an LA on the end of that sometimes as well.
Yeah, that's correct. There's a slash in the middle, but
Okay.
Uniform or Uniform LA is generally how we're referred to.
Welcome, Pat. Welcome to the podcast. How's everything going?
It's great. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. We need more guests on the podcast, and I guess I should just give a special shout out and thanks to kind of our mutual friend Neil, who kind of encourages both to link up and do this type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Pat, you have a brand, Uniform, like we just mentioned. You're based out of LA. Let's just jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about like the origins of your brand and what you're all about and what you're doing out there.
Yeah. So, the intent was never to really start a brand. It came about as something that I was looking for and just couldn't find. At the time I was living in Denver, looking to dress better in a way that I felt like more confident. And I kind of went to the regular outlets looking for that, the mall and some small boutiques that they had there, and just couldn't really find what I was looking for. And, that's sort of where the idea came from. And then it was many, many years until I actually started the brand.
So Pat, I know you were in Denver. Are you from Colorado originally?
No, I'm from Ohio.
Ohio. Okay. So Ohio, and then to CU Boulder, and then to Denver, and then out to LA.
Yeah, I took the long route.
Yeah. Do you have do you have a favorite out of those three?
Boulder definitely holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
But for this stage of my life, I absolutely love Los Angeles.
Yeah. What's been like as you've gone from the Midwest to, kind of a mountain town of sorts, and now out to, like a style playground like LA, like has that been weird to kind of see all of those different, the different versions of style that people have in those places?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's more like you looking back, you see it, when I go home, it's, just a whole different animal. So like when I landed in Columbus Airport, it sometimes it feels like you teleport.
Yeah.
Going from there to here, and you get off the jetway in LA, and it just feels like a completely different animal. Or I go back to, Denver or Boulder, and everyone's in Patagonia. And
yeah,
I mean, that's something that's always interested me about fashion anyway. It's just how it's colloquially expressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've spent a lot more, between like our the U.S. is kind of two hubs of where we think of where like fashion kind of lives the most. It's New York and L.A. And I've spent far more time in New York, and so we've done kind of like comparisons on the podcast before about like New York style versus Austin style, and just about how it's fun to be in a place where like kind of like getting decked out, and as they say, where you can really start dressing. It's nice. It's nice
Yeah.
to be in places like that. And in Austin, we're so casual. So it's we talk about some of like the trends and looks that that you see in like street style or on the runway, and it's just like you would never have a chance to wear that stuff here. But I imagine that in LA, like you could if you wanted to.
Yeah, I don't personally as much, but absolutely. If you walked in Denver or Boulder, I mean, it's a very accepting place, so no one would say anything, but you would definitely, it would look like cosplay.
Yeah.
If you're throwing a fit out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Wait, so you mentioned flying into Columbus. Are you from Columbus?
I grew up in Columbus.
So why Boulder over Ohio State?
I think I just wanted to get away. Actually, I didn't tell my dad this till years later, but I was a good student in high school, and I had a number of roles, in like different things. And Ohio State actually offered me a scholarship to go there, but
Well,
I just kind of wanted to get away.
yeah.
And a buddy and I, it was never meant to be Colorado, but a buddy of mine were really into snowboarding, and we wanted an excuse to go snowboarding. So we're like, yo, we'll go on a college visit. This will be perfect. And the minute we stepped off the bus in Boulder, we're like, okay, we're going here. Having never been to any class or anything. So, it was just like a yearning to get away. And I love the Midwest. I think the Midwest has like some of the most amazing people, and I'm so thankful for the way that I was raised in the Midwest. Every place is different. I try not to look at things as like better or worse, just, different, and appreciate the differences. And for me, I just, at that time, the things I was into was more representative in the Rocky Mountain region. And that's, sort of what drew me out of there, and just wanting to change. And, I'm thankful that I did that.
Yeah, I mean, I visited a buddy that went to CU Boulder a couple of times, and that was by far the most fun campus to visit a friend at.
I never went.
I mean, it was absolutely,
I had a buddy there too.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah,
like every time I went there, I was like, yeah, I probably should have gone here.
I've never heard a bad thing. Never.
Like, I mean, I loved my experience at University of Texas, but it's just different, and I don't know. Stuff got wild out there, man.
Yeah.
So it's a good choice. Pat, I had one of my best friends. I've known him since we were little, and we went to middle school and high school and then college together, like same fraternity. We had a plan to, as soon as we graduated from the University of Texas, we were gonna do like a gap year then and go be ski bums. And then I didn't graduate on time, so we did not get to do that.
Oh. I never lived that lifestyle, but that sounds like an excellent plan. Phil,
Yeah.
Phil, are you a Texas guy too? UT?
No, I went to Texas State, the little stepchild of this Central Texas region. Texas State was
Okay.
formerly Southwest Texas, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place, San Marcos. But we lacked in
Well, you had
athletics.
but you did have one thing in common with Boulder, and that is a plethora of gorgeous women.
Yeah, a lot of girls.
Yeah.
A lot of
So-
girls, and it was a beautiful campus. We had a river that goes right through the campus that everybody would chill
Oh,
at.
nice.
It was fun.
Yeah. So
Low tubing.
Yes, a lot of
a
tubing.
lot of tubing.
A lot of tubing.
Absolutely. Pat, have you always been from Ohio in high school, like through college? Like, have you kind of always had the style bug? Like, is started having your own clothing line? Like, when did that idea kind of pop into your head? Like, man, this is something that I kind of want to check out.
That kind of originated, to answer your question. Yeah, I think I've always been interested in fashion, but it's in sort of like a roundabout way. I have an older brother who, he's 2 years older than me, and growing up, I just kind of took cues from him. And, really looking up to him, he would go to the mall with my mom, and they would go shopping, and he'd bring back all these clothes that, like, I never really heard of. I'd never heard of at that time. And I mean, looking back, these are terrible clothes. The trends of the time did not age well. And, I would go through them, and it was just like his admiration for these pieces and, these things that he knew about. It was almost like a secret culture.
Yeah.
The way it is now with so many indie brands.
Right.
It's almost like it's like a club, to borrow from the name.
Sure.
And that sort of sparked my interest, and seeing his interest in it sort of propelled me to be interested in it. And then I was always sort of interested in the manifestation of how people present themselves. You could dress anywhere you want. Phil's owning it in that hat, absolutely. But like it just fascinates me that fashion's sort of like an outward expression of an inner feeling, and in that regard, it's always been interesting to me. This is super embarrassing, but I was voted best dressed in high school.
Nice.
That's
And
I mean, I don't. That doesn't surprise me, Pat. I was voted best dressed in my high school as well. So
Yes.
Wow, look at these
Yours
guys.
is probably deserved.
no, it wasn't. It was not at all. I wore I wore mostly Abercrombie and Fitch, and then when I was a senior in high school, I blew people's minds by wearing Diesel jeans.
Shoot, young king.
Were you a structure guy? I feel like
Oh,
structure.
I think that's actually based in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio. I think
I-
that's one of Les Wexner's things.
Yeah. Because that's what eventually became Express Men's,
For men, yeah.
and now it is just like totally wildly different than structure. Actually, was more like an Abercrombie or Eddie Bauer.
Mhm.
Like it was very, kind of had that like that kind of Midwestern charm to it, like very low key, very casual, but kind of beat up as at the same time.
Yeah, that was interesting when they met. No, I was man, we're really going into it now. You guys destroy this tape right after I say it, right? I was into Abercrombie and Banana Republic.
Yeah.
I think everybody was.
Yeah.
That was before like online was big, and whatever was right in front of you at the mall. I mean, that's really your choices, right? I mean, unless you're getting some magazines thrown your way from J. Crew and the like.
Yeah.
But we would tear up some Abercrombie
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
and Gap.
Did they have an Abercrombie in Beaumont, or
Yes.
did y'all have to drive to Houston?
No. Now that being said, when we would make the journey to the Galleria in Houston, I would hit up Guess.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Come out of there dripping.
Yeah. Then you really started dressing.
That's when I was really dressed.
in the guess.
I feel like the Galleria in a lot of hip hop songs.
It has to be.
Maybe.
It has to. It's such a spot.
Yeah. Definitely
is.
in some Houston hip hop, they definitely have mentioned the Galleria a dozen times. Yeah.
I love the Galleria.
So Pat, how long have you been in LA now?
So I've been here full time about 6 years.
Okay.
But originally I was there was a time in all of this where I didn't actually have a home, but I had a flight pass, like what's called a companion pass.
Okay.
Which essentially allows you to treat the airlines like a bus system, and you just get on and off as you please.
Yeah.
Depending on flight loads. So for 2 or 3 years, I was traveling out here, sleeping on a blow-up mattress in my friend's living room while I started pursuing this. And I would take the bus downtown to meet up with our original pattern maker and sample maker. And so that was 2 or 3 years, beginning in like 2013. So I guess it's been 7 years and 6 years full time.
Yeah. Yeah. So you
5
mentioned
years.
those kind of like the early pattern maker. Well, just as a general kind of question about uniform, do you did it start with you making something that you wanted? Like who are you making clothes for? What's kind of the overall goal of the brand right now?
Yeah, right now it's different from what it was then. Originally, it was, we're going to make the perfect t-shirt, because that's what I was, that's the origins of the brand was
Right.
in Denver when I was, DJing full time. I was looking for just the perfect t-shirt that I could wear in the club, that I could just wear out about town. And it wasn't a billboard. It didn't announce you. There wasn't a bunch of unnecessary details. It just fit great. The material was on point, and I could just reach for it every day. That's the nice thing about basics. If, you wear a black tee every day, you can pretty much get away with that versus wearing any other tee with print or anything. They're just like, I'm pretty sure this guy's homeless.
Is that kind of like the name uniform? Is that kind of what that speaks to, is being able to wear this stuff pretty much every day?
Yeah, that's the sort of central idea behind the brand. When I was looking to dress better and looking for clothes, when we talk about the mall and the Galleria, shout out the Galleria. So much of it was just like, to me, Phil brings up a great point. You go to the mall because that's all we had. That's all but it sort of becomes like this ridiculous cosplay where, I'm 17, 18 years old dressing like a dad in Safari on my Banana Republic, or you go to Structure. That's your fancy date night stuff for anyone who's old enough to remember. But it didn't, none of those things really resonated with me, and they certainly didn't work well together. If you had the big Abercrombie Carpenter jeans back in the day, it didn't go well with like a, Express Men's, shiny button up. And it was just sort of like a hodgepodge. And that's where uniform comes from, is sort of like a system of dress that you can rely on daily and that you can build a wardrobe foundation. So the goal of the brand is sort of, to provide, our guy with all the basics he needs, the tees, sweatshirts, and then if you want to like flex in some rude track pants or, or whatever, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up Rude, and we watch guys like Ruigi at Rude, or like Mike Amiri or Jerry Lorenzo, and these dudes, they really, like, part of the brand, part of them selling is like their success as well. They really seem to kind of like flaunt all of this. So is that the end goal for you? Are you just trying to get the Maserati truck?
No, I don't. The time when I talked about earlier, not having, like a spot, I think I'm grateful for every day, and I'm not really a status guy, and I'm not really driven by money.
Yeah.
I love what I'm doing, and I find so much fulfillment in what I'm doing right now, and like making things. It just gives me purpose. So, my goal, they're so modest. I would like my own washer and dryer and central air and heat, and I would like to be able to buy a smoothie whenever I walk by and feel the urge.
Yeah. It's the simple things. Now, are we talking?
Yeah.
Are we talking Erewhon?
Oh wow.
What is Erewhon?
Pat, tell Phil what Erewhon is. I don't know how to describe it.
Is that a smoothie joint?
It's like I've never been, but I'm sure like a juice there costs $17.
Yeah, it does. So Erewhon is sort of based, just to boil it down, Erewhon makes Whole Foods look broke.
You would be all about it, Phil.
Oh, I'm in.
On last week's podcast, Phil told us that he hadn't had McDonald's in 10 years. So give this guy something with some reishi mushrooms in it,
and I'll eat it.
And he'll pay you whatever you want.
I'm with Phil. Did you guys tried the Travis Scott?
We did, yeah.
Right?
Dude, surprisingly tasty. And I didn't feel like total death afterwards. Now, if we would have each had our own meal, the whole deal.
You think we got away with it because we split it at snack size?
Yes. If you would have consumed that whole thing, you would have had some trouble.
Yeah. Today's podcast is brought to you by Lumen Skin. Look, I know in these unprecedented times, it can be very, very easy to ignore your skin, ignore your face. You just roll out of bed, you get on your Zoom calls, there's not as much to go do, you're being lazy about it, but here is the cold, hard truth, guys. Your skin has needs, and if you want it to look as good as possible for as long as possible, you need to address them now. Totally get it. You might not know where to start, but there is a company that's taken all the guesswork out of it for you. That's right. It's Lumen. Lumen is on a mission to help give men the amazing skin they deserve through high-quality, expert-created products delivered right to your door. All of their products are formulated specifically for men's skin and made to target skin issues with maximum efficacy, using top-notch ingredients like charcoal, green tea extract, and vitamin C. It's not just about looking good, it's about feeling good. You need good skin health, especially as you get older, to prevent long-term damage. For me, Lumen Skin, I use the moisturizing balm at night and in the morning. It's a multi-purpose product. It makes my skin feel really smooth and balmy and gives me that healthy glow. Plus, they've got a great exfoliating product. You've heard me talk about how much I just can't get enough exfoliation. That's what I am all about. I just love the roughness. It makes me feel very clean. All of the products are amazing. They make my skin feel great. They'll make yours feel great as well. Even if you have no idea where to begin, Lumen makes it so easy to find the right skin management system for you. There are so many different options on Lumen Skin, so many different sets. There's the age management set. That's the one I should probably get. You got your modern bathroom set, or even just a classic maintenance set. You can check that one out. Whatever you want, they got it all. Choose from different skin concerns to address, or just pick up that simple starter pack for free. You deserve to look and feel your best. Here's where you go to start. lumenskin.com/clubcool to get a 1-month free trial of everything you need to start your skincare journey at home. That's lumenskin.com/clubcool to get your first month free. One more time, Lumin, Lumin, skin.com/clubcool. Yeah. Okay. So, Pat, do you hate the term elevated basics yet, or is that still a good description for what you're doing?
Yeah, the term elevated basics, I think is a solid term. I think it's been watered down and overused, and unfortunately, I think that kind of ruins the effectiveness. When I first had this idea, unfortunately, I think that was just kind of coming into being and was more of an avenue. I think at that time APC was doing it and not a ton of other brands. Maybe they were just getting into that space. But unfortunately, at that time, I didn't really have any of the know-how or the capital to really move to establish ourselves in that. But I think from the beginning of this, I think that's the avenue we were going in. And I think the space has become much more crowded with brands making a move on that.
Yeah, I mean, with the rise of just like athleisure and casual gear in general, and the fact that you can wear a t-shirt out to a nice dinner at this point, it definitely just became saturated. And I don't really mean to make fun of the term either. And this whole, just with brands and with fashion and style, there's always people always kind of rush to they see somebody have success with something and they rush in to fill it as well. And we always we even make fun of ourselves at Howler occasionally about how the copy in emails about our friends over at, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Just the way you write your marketing emails about how you're all buddy with whoever you're working with, that type of thing. It just, everything gets kind of overused and overplayed. It seems like it works for one person, and then it just
athleisure.
we beat the dead horse. But yeah, you mentioned APC. Is that kind of one of the brands that you were super into or kind of pulling inspiration from originally?
APC is the first brand that so denim got me in sort of the space that we're in, the boutique designer space.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was looking to dress better. I'd go to the mall and I try on everything. I try on the diesel jeans, and they were cool. I just thought they were a little overdone. And that's, how I came to kind of online forums. And at the time they were preaching the gospel of the APC new standard, size down 4 or 5, I think. So APC was the first sort of brand that introduced me into that. And I was wearing my jeans restrictingly tight, wear for 3 days before you
Pat,
could
you just gotta break them in and sleep in them for a week, and then also put them on and run into the ocean with them, and then don't take them off until they're completely dry.
Sick fades.
That's how that's how you get those mad honeycombs. So you mentioned Style Forum, and we both have participated there for several years. It's kind of that's Style Forum is where I found out about your brand. It's where I've found out about brands like John Elliott and even 18 East, really, through Style Forum. So it's a good community. It does obviously have it's kind of quirks and pitfalls as well. You mentioned being on there with the whole raw denim craze. The first time, the first year or two that I was involved with Style Forum, I remember paying very close attention to the "What are you wearing today" thread. That was the first thread that I started paying attention to, and I think this was 2012 and 2013, and there were really only, I would say, 2 or 3 ways to dress properly if you wanted anybody to give you any respect.
And what were they?
So one of those ways was very much the raw denim with maybe some APC or some engineered garments or some double RL or this very Daddington kind of urban woodsman thing.
Yeah,
and
the
then,
workwear craze.
Yeah, and then you could be a goth urban ninja.
Nice.
And then you could or you could have do you remember Temple of John's? The Temple of John's leather jackets?
Absolutely.
With Margiela Gats and Robert Geller jeans.
God.
But so I remember posting a fit pic on there, and it was I've looked back at this particular fit pic. I'll post it. I'll post it.
Please. I'd love to see
It's
it.
not good, but I got big shit on, and I was so mad.
Lambasted.
I was so mad and like upset, and I was like, oh, these motherfuckers, like you can only wear 4 brands or they don't think you're shit. And so that's actually like how I stumbled into the John Elliott thread, because people were really nice in that thread. Everybody was like very encouraging and helpful, and so and I've really never gone back to the what are you wearing today thread. But just to you have a buzzy popular thread there as well. Is that kind of like, is it nice to have that community kind of fiending for your product and bugging you with questions all the time? Or is it, like it's I'm sure that it can get annoying, but it's also got to feel good to have people like really kind of like, they're talking about the stuff that you're making.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's great, the community that's developed there, and I'm super appreciative. I think anytime people are interested in what you're doing and are supportive and fans of what you're doing and the direction you're going, it's a win. I think when you're transparent about what you're doing, it opens up a lot of feedback that, I try to view any criticism or any, whatever as constructive as possible, and just see it as like, these are people who are really excited about what we're doing, and they wouldn't say something if they weren't interested. So to your question, I definitely think it's been like a blessing, because I remember early on, we would make products and then we'd be like, hey, here's a product for sale, and no one wanted it, no one cared, and this was early on. So now to have it and put stuff out, sizes sell out pretty quick, and things like that is a huge blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just when I think about the brands that I like pay attention to and I'm really invested in, they generally have that in common, that there is some type of community around them that like loves talking about the brand and loves sharing the items that they get. And so, I mentioned some of the ones that are popular there on Style Forum, but then like, we talk about Aimé Leon Dore pretty frequently, which has like a big Reddit thread and a Discord. And then I think about other brands that I like a lot, like something like Rag & Bone, but there's no like, it just like exists in a vacuum almost. Mm-hmm. There's nobody that's passionate about Rag & Bone. And that's why they make a shit ton of stuff and have a fully fleshed out line and show at New York Fashion Week or whatever, but they don't sell out stuff. And it's like, you have to generate that type of that fervent kind of community to like push your brand into this cool area where you're able to like really like go in any direction you want, and people are kind of clamoring for it and buying and selling it out. You guys just released these new artist tees. I'm wearing a long sleeve one today, and I mean, you did a soft launch of those and blew them out, right?
Yeah, I think we have some bigger sizes left, but yeah, those sold out pretty quick, especially the short sleeve.
Yeah.
And all the smaller sizes. I'd have to check, but I think there's some larges and XLs left.
Yeah.
But they've been received really well, and yeah, we have a lot of plans for that silhouette in our line.
So this artist tee, this new one that I think you've got some more colors in the short sleeve and long sleeve coming out in a day or two, maybe? Or when is official launch for the artist tees?
When's this podcast come out?
Damn, breaking news.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot. Wow. I mean, I know with the pandemic and COVID, you never know. But yeah, I mean, hey, look, anybody is able to go on the Style Forum and see what Pat is saying.
True. And I think that transparency does build community. To your point where you talk about these other brands, I think when you let people in, they feel, more connection with the brands. And the things you said about Rag & Bone are really interesting too. They have a massive shop at Abbot Kinney. They have a massive shop, Midtown LA, I think. And I'm always kind of amazed. I'm like, who is buying this stuff? Like,
No, I mean
who is?
they've got shops all over the place. They've got like I want to say 6 doors in Manhattan alone. Like it's crazy. They're clearly very successful. They have an international brand, but I never, you know, like just like what we're speaking to, people don't. I don't think people are, you know, they're not jazzed. They're not waiting on pins and needles for like for a new product to be released by them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how, you know, there are many avenues to success, and I don't know really what the difference is between like how they found it and got so big, but and then what other brands like Uniform is doing, and
Right.
where they've got this really devoted diehard following. You know, it's just two different avenues, I guess. It's also probably like I think they were a wholesale darling. You know, they probably had huge buys from Barney's, Saks, whoever, and then women's wear. And I don't, you know, I know women who are interested in fashion and style too, but I don't know if they get. I feel like becoming like obsessed and really dedicated and like following one brand feels like a. I don't know. I think that's like a sneaker thing almost. It's like it feels like a dude thing more so.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like competitiveness with it, I feel like.
Yeah.
And that kind of leans
So
towards.
yeah, I don't totally know how a brand like Rag & Bone like exactly gets as big as it does without ever having like a super passionate following, but
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say real quick, I don't think that they're necessarily. I think they do a lot of things pretty well.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that really like lights me, you know, that I'm really passionate about that they make.
Right.
I look at it and I'm like, that's cool. I have a couple shirts.
Yeah. No, exactly. So you don't have to give any type of exact date on this artist tee, but I do want to ask you about it because it's like this artist tee kind of follows this when we talked about this last week, this kind of loosening up of silhouettes in a way, right? It's a little shorter, it's a little boxier. And so what's what's your process in kind of deciding what to do next or when to bring out a new silhouette, or like how does that kind of development and research type of stuff work for you?
A lot of it is you know, observing kind of what's happening in the fashion landscape and just where tastes are going. And you know, one of the nice things about having a community in style form is you get a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
You know, both publicly there, and then so many will reach out to me privately and, you know, say, I would love if you made this. So a lot of like the direction does come from that. But also, you know, like I said, just kind of seeing what's going on in LA, or, you know, even when you're on Instagram, kind of seeing where the silhouettes are going. But as a general design philosophy, you know, like I kind of view it as like in two silos, where one is more traditional and, you know, like more tailored. That's what the classic tee is. And then it's like a loosening up like the artist tee is. And so, you know, as we're getting ready to put out sweatpants, we have one of each and then one that falls in the middle. And that's sort of the way that the t-shirts are currently structured. You know, there's the classic crew neck, which we're sort of working on redoing now in 100% cotton silhouette. That's like the perfect all-American tee, sort of kind of like a James Dean style classic tee that's a little more cropped. Then there's the vintage tee, which Phil has on, which is, you know, a great classic tee. It's a little heavier. And then there's the artist tee, which is oversized. So it's sort of like allowing people to pick what is best suited for them.
Yeah. And you mentioned sweats coming out as well. Is there anything else that you could tell us about that's like 2021 type stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this was all slated for 2020 before the pandemic and everything hit, but we do have, like you mentioned, sweats coming out. We have 3 styles of sweatpants. One that's a more traditional kind of jogger style that's slimmer. There's another one that's a little more of an edgy style with the cinches, so you can cinch the hem, pull it up, you know, wear it down if you want. And then we have an oversized silhouette, or a more oversized silhouette, that will be debuting in a heavyweight fabric, along with heavyweight hoodies and sweatshirts. But, you know, the biggest announcement is the idea behind the brand, like we talked about earlier, is providing a man with like his core wardrobe. And with that, denim's something I've always been passionate about. So world premiere here on Club Cool.
Oh shit.
Here it is. Cue the
Phil,
music, Randy.
Sound the air horn, Phil.
Denim, baby. Let's go.
So we're getting into denim. It's been over a year long search to find everything, but we're starting a denim program, basically similar to what Acne was doing with the Ace and the Thin, something like that, or Subi does with the Van Winkle and the Chich.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be a slim denim that we're debuting first, along with a Type 3 trucker jacket, which I believe I sent to you.
Yeah, we have it.
That is dope.
It is burly and it's awesome.
Yes.
And the details are on point. You got for somebody that this is like you don't really like, you didn't work for a brand prior to this. You're nailing fit and you're nailing details too. Like the pockets on this denim jacket are like perfectly situated in the perfect depth too. And it's just something that, I've got an Acne denim jacket that doesn't that doesn't have all those tiny little things exactly right like that. So it's impressive. It's awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. A lot of that comes from sort of we sort of iterate a number of times on samples, and I think it's a bit disorienting to the people we first start working with, but once they kind of get an idea for how particular I am about every detail, they I guess accept it. And a big part of it's finding partners who are willing to be patient and work with us, and who sign on to the long-term vision. Yeah. But going on from the denim thing, we also, the goal with this line is to literally provide an entire core wardrobe, like everything you need, from above the sneakers up. So we're also working on a shirting program, a plaid shirting program that's going to start with a more classic flannel.
Okay.
And then we're also working on a heavier, more oversized flannel. And we have a partner on that, who I met in Paris at Premier Vision, who's willing to do, that took a while to find, but they're willing to do entirely custom everything. Like we can find the patterns. They'll let us, design the weights, and they're really, really down to work with us. So, working on that's been huge.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be cool.
So you're coming for every corner of the closet then?
Yeah, that's the goal. The goal is a lot of people, in 2021, we want to get into knitwear, like sweaters, not knitwear, like t-shirts and hoodies, but want to get into sweaters. We already have a partner here in Los Angeles that we're going to start working with and developing everything with. But long term, I would love to do jackets, like wool top coats, and just do them really well.
Yeah. Is there any like do you kind of envision it going like more of the APC way, where everything is really kind of like, I don't want to say traditional, but it's very sharp, it's very clean usually? Or do you kind of like do you want to do kind of something crazy? Do you envision like maybe some wilder, louder statement pieces eventually as well? Do you kind of like picture yourself going one way or the other on that type of thing?
I more gravitate towards simplistic design. I think the perfect design for me is paring down all the details and distilling it to what really matters, which to me is, fit and the fabric and construction and nailing like all those details. I think a lot of our customers would like to see us get a little more wild with, the colors we're choosing and the dye processes and stuff. And I'm completely open to that. But, my core sort of design philosophy is in paring it down, which does an interesting downside to that, if you want to call it that, is that it doesn't really convey itself so well over the internet. And as a primarily e-commerce brand, that's been a challenge for us. You see a black shirt, and if you're cold traffic, you're like, well, it's a black tee. Like so much of like what we do has been commoditized by makers who don't really do it well. And because of that, I think clothing in general has been like largely commoditized, where a white t-shirt's a white t-shirt, and I can get a 3-pack of these at Costco for $14.
Right.
And so that's been, and I think the niche that we're in, Barrett, that you and Phil belong to, I think we understand a little bit better. But, for someone who's cold coming to the site, that's been more of a challenge for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Along with that challenge, like, real quick, what did you end up getting a degree in from Boulder?
It's a great question. So I went to Boulder originally, and I was studying MCDB. I thought I wanted to be a doctor, growing up in a small town. Well, I grew up in Columbus, and my dad has a family pharmacy in Chillicothe. So, being from a small town, I do find it odd that at 18, they're like, what do you want to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And you've never done anything, and you really don't know what anyone does. Maybe you have a loose idea what your parents do,
Right.
But you don't know what their day-to-day is like. And it's so odd to me, the way that things are in the US, that essentially at 18, you're supposed to pick something you've never done. And that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So I thought at that time I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
So I started out studying biology, then, became a professional DJ. I was DJing in high school, but it was real elementary type stuff, like taking my dad's records and scratching them, So, Simon and Garfunkel's cool, but it really just needs some sick cuts.
It didn't hit.
Didn't hit, no.
Did you know that I was a DJ, Pat?
I had no idea.
DJ to DJ.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, I was never like spinning in the club. I wasn't chopping records up.
He was almost.
I was not like, I wasn't on the Dead Mouse track, but I did. I started DJing when I was in like 7th grade. And I was literally like picking up a stereo system or from my dad's office that had like multiple disc, arrangements, like 2 different sides, and like hosting small birthday parties and just like essentially being the playlist curator. And that eventually grew. And then I had like more professional equipment. But so I was more like a wedding DJ than like like a club DJ. But
I love that.
Yeah, I have I got a little experience.
Do you still have your equipment?
No. The equipment was
discarded.
It was lost.
Damn.
It was stolen in a.
What?
Yeah, it was. I don't want to get into it.
Ooh.
It was
touchy.
I was a dumbass college kid.
Yeah.
And I left the equipment somewhere where it was definitely going to get stolen, and it got stolen, and that's what happened.
And that was the end of your career.
And that was, pretty much.
No, his dad wanted his stereo back, Phil.
It was not the end of my career. That predated Day Rage. You'll remember.
Day Rage.
That's for the old heads out there. Just
Huge
a
success.
little Easter egg here on the podcast. But no, I could go rent the stuff from a local place here. Pat, what was your DJ name?
So my original DJ name when I first started was Breaka Breaka, because I thought it was super cool and creative, like radio code, like I'm talking with my hands.
Yes.
But I hated the name it sounded when it was spoken. And years later, to answer your question, my official DJ name is really boring. It's DJ Pat Allen, but I didn't give that to myself.
Okay.
What it ended up being was DJ Boo Bear, and then my tagline was the professional picnic basket snatcher. And
nice.
And I had a logo and everything. It was a bear dressed as a ghost holding a picnic basket with a scary font that said DJ Boo Bear.
Wow.
Spooky season.
Season. Perfect.
And that came that came about because I got to a point in my career where I was opening for a number of people. And without using like their real name, they would come, and these were people that, I'm still fans of what they're doing, but you'd be stoked to meet them and be like, hey, what's up, man? I'm Pat. And they'd be like, yo, I'm DJ Razorblade. And you're like,
yeah,
well, what do I call you? Do I call you like Razor, or
Blade.
does your mom have a special name for you, or what's your grandma call you? And I just like, to me, it was like so absurd and over the top. So I'm like, I'm gonna make this really ridiculous name. But the backlash was no club would ever print it. They would just put DJ Pat Allen.
Okay.
So that's where that comes from.
They wouldn't print the Boo Bear on the
No.
title card?
Or the logo. The logo was flames. They didn't know. What was your name? What was your DJ name?
So I never. So my little business that I did in high school was Hey Mr. DJ. It was based off that Madonna song.
Oh yeah.
It had legs.
But then in college, I was just like nicknamed DJ Duds. That, you know,
Nice.
again, like not something that I gave myself, but just kind of a nickname that stuck with some friends. But yeah, man, I can see the Boo Bear merch. Just that if you ever do a graphic tee,
Yeah, do a capsule.
you got to do a Boo Bear capsule.
That'd be great.
Do the limited edition picnic basket.
Yeah.
Yes. That's I feel like that's very
Nobody's
on,
doing
on
that.
trend. That type of like kind of almost absurdist graphic or whatever.
Yeah.
But Pat, I asked you, like, I mean, I ended up studying government at UT, and then have obviously like made this completely different, 180 career wise. So I was just like, curious, like, if you didn't study fashion or textiles at school, like, has that been a hurdle that you've had to overcome?
Oh, so yeah. So to finish to answer your question, I was pre-med, started DJing all the time. And I just had to, after 3 or 4 years, I'm like, I'm never really going to become a doctor. These people are super dedicated and your GPA is teetering above 2, right? So there's no med school, unless I'm cheating on my MCAT.
Yeah.
There's no med school in the world that would take me, and rightfully so. So I was just like, I went to my counselor and I'm like, look, I just need to get out of here. And so I became a comm major, and I ultimately graduated in communications. So I don't have any formal fashion training, but in a lot of ways, oh, sorry, go on.
You're talking to another comm major right here in the building.
Yes.
No wonder you guys are communicating so
I know,
well.
right?
Right.
Excellent communicators.
Encode, decode,
Yes.
sender receiver model, Phil, you know.
Fuck.
But yeah, so does that make it tough, or you've just like found the right people?
I think it's a blessing in a lot of ways. I think not having been conditioned in a certain mindset of, okay, this is how everything operates, and you double your price here, then you double your price here, you make your line sheets like that, has been a blessing. And like I learned very informally. My first mentor and all this, she actually taught at FITM. So I'd reach out to her. And when I first told her I want to do this, her response was, don't do this. You don't want to do this. It's nothing like you think it's like. It's not sexy. And so I was like, I'll tell you what, I'll think about it. And then, I was just completely unfazed. I was like, I don't really care, what it's like. But at that time, I really didn't know anything. So, I learned very informally, and she would give me textbooks that I would just read front to back and, have a vague understanding of everything that happened. But I think it has, originally I think it hindered us because I had no idea how anything worked. Like I knew basically I knew basically the process, but having never been through it or worked with anyone, like we were just like, hey, we want to make this. And they're like, all right, cool. Where's the tech pack? And, I'd go in the parking lot and call Aaron and be like, hey, what's a tech pack?
Yeah.
And how do I make one? And can you make one for me? And so she was a great sport, and she did, but there's been a lot of learning like that, on your feet. But I think all in all, it's a blessing. We mentioned Rag and Bone earlier, and they're another one without formal training,
Okay.
in fashion. And I think I there's been times where I'm like, I think about early on, less now, but I'm like, maybe I should go to fashion school. Maybe that is something I should do. But, it's just been kind of like learning on the job. And I think it's caused a lot of delays initially, but.
Yeah. I mean, Ralph Lauren is another guy, no professional fashion training, doesn't put together tech packs or do the sketches or like create his own patterns, anything like that. He just is the head that knows what he's after and has figured out how to get it done. So, you know, it certainly hasn't like stopped other people from doing it. I'm just always curious because, you know, when I first went to work for Grand X, I was basically just like flying by the seat of my pants as well, just kind of teaching myself what this stuff was, what a tech pack was, and you know, and I still, there's still stuff that I don't know, like, you know, like I'm wearing this T-shirt, it fits awesome, I love it, but I don't know about the pitch of it. I don't know what moving like a shoulder seam like forward half an inch would do to the body of the garment, and it's like that's stuff that I still kind of wish that I knew a little bit, you know. So it's not prohibitive necessarily, but like you said, it just kind of when you're getting going, it can definitely create a speed bump or two.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been fortunate to have, you know, great mentors who've taught me a lot, you know, in like every avenue that we do. You know, for us, all our fabrics are custom. And that was a big hurdle early on, mainly because no one wanted to do it, especially for a small brand they'd never heard of. And, you know, we've been fortunate now to have a fabric partner who's like excited and willing to innovate with us. And I'll literally every day I just drop by his office and ask him a million questions. You know, there's still so much I'm learning and I want to know everything. You know, I want to know a very technically detailed. I want to have a technically detailed idea of like, you know, if we switch this on this circular knitter, what's it do? How does changing the yarn size, you know, all these things. Like, so I have a million questions and, you know, he's been very generous with his time and sharing that with me. And we're fortunate to have that in production or, you know, in fabric. Our pattern maker, bless her heart, I just drill her with a million questions all the time. And, you know, that's been so helpful.
Pat,
Sure,
how
she
big
loves
is
it.
y'all's team?
We have a small team. Most are freelance, so we have a lot of parts. So it's about like 5-6 people, I'd
Nice.
say roughly.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, gotta run lean,
you
right?
have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pat, just to kind of bounce around here a little bit, you mentioned you've got heavyweight terry product coming out, and just like, you know, I think about kind of what guys are looking for right now, and I feel like we're in a state with menswear where like the heaviness of an item that's like that's kind of become synonymous with quality
Right.
to a lot of guys. And so like you'll pick up some of this kind of stuff that leans like more streetwear, like whether it's Fear of God or something else or Rude, and it's like it's almost cardboard-esque because of its like roughness and its texture and its weight.
Mm-hmm.
And is that like is that something that you've noticed kind of like trending, and how does that actually mean quality? Like what are you looking for as far as those cottons and the weights, and like how do you determine like what's their right decision there? Just as, you know, with that type of with the way that has kind of trended.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think for a lot of men, you know, weight is sort of a shortcut to quality. We equate the heavier something is with the more quality. And, you know, there is some truth to that, depending on what they're using to make it heavy. You know, something like cotton, when we're talking about Fear of God, you know, in their 32-ounce sweatpants, that fabric's really expensive because each yard of fabric weighs 32 ounces. That's 32 ounces of cotton, which is a commodity that they're buying. Someone's spinning that into yarn and then they're dyeing it, and they dye by weight. So the way you get charged on dye is by the weight of the fabric. So they're spending a lot of money on that. And to answer your question, I think at times, yes, heaviness can be a shortcut to quality. I think for a lot of men, that's like their only cue to quality. But there's varying factors too, like what is it made out of? You know, if it's 100% cotton, a lot of times when you're talking about that dry feel, that's open-ended yarn, which is like a lower quality yarn that's cheaper to produce and it's shorter strands or fibers. But people in streetwear love that.
Right.
You know, that's been the wave, is like that heavy, dry hand. And it's cool. It doesn't really wash well, but it will last, you know, forever. And you can beat the hell out of it. And it's sort of like what we find in thrift stores and stuff. but the other thing is the content, in some garments, if they're blending cotton, with poly or another petro fabric, now it's much cheaper. So there's a lot that goes into that. And one way that brands make things cheaper is to use cheaper products, and you can still knit it heavy. A 50-50 poly cotton hoodie that's knit really heavy is going to be much cheaper on the fabric than 100% cotton, because
Right.
there's less of that commodity.
Yeah.
But it's a balance too, because those sweatpants, those Fear of God sweatpants, we have some in reference here, but they're cool. They're definitely, you pick them up and you're like, wow. But to me, they're not that wearable. So it's a lot about striking a balance between those two things. Like, yes, we could make this heavier. We could make all of our tees heavier, but what's the perfect balance of weight and comfort, or like functionality is
Yeah.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When we mentioned these kind of brands that that are doing this type of stuff, and we talked about those specific designers already, I feel like a lot of what also goes into their prices is marketing.
Yeah.
Just they're spending so much on websites and lookbooks and photo shoots and product placement and like all of that, like that cost just has to be enormous, a piece of the overhead, to where you really have to like inflate that retail price to get some of that back. So is that something that you think about for the future? Is like is having to spend more on marketing budget essentially?
Oh, it's a great question. And that's something you don't really realize till you're sort of on the other side.
Yeah.
I think we've all heard like the famous, it costs Nike $5 to make a pair of Jordans. And I don't know if that's true or not, but certainly it's, the popular lore.
Right. Yeah.
But there's more into it than like cost of goods. Essentially you're paying, in this case, Jordan Brand or Nike, to make you want their shoes, right? Demand creation's a huge part of the cost. So, one of the principles of the brand is trying to keep it accessible. So in that, we try to cut out everything that's not necessary.
Yeah.
But marketing's very necessary. So it's like, how do you balance this?
Totally.
And that's something that we're trying to figure out now, because there's a lot of things people don't understand that cost a lot of money. Photo shoots in a studio with models, even for e-commerce pictures, cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might not see the value in that, consciously, but subconsciously there is a lot of value in that from like a marketing and demand perspective. So that, that's something that we are trying to manage now. Like, how do we do all the things that we want to do with make a quality product and still keep it accessible as we continue to grow?
I mean, it's a big piece of your brand, the fact that it is approachable and accessible to a really like, wide group of people. And I think we all appreciate that. It's very easy to kind of peruse your site and, add to cart. So it's
shocking to me how slick and how far you've come just in such a short period of time. I mean, if y'all were to get on the website, uniformla.com, it's so easy to navigate. All the fit pics are super detailed, very helpful. And then the lookbook is dope. That to me, like, cause I'm in the process of doing a website for my real estate business, and it's a real pain in the ass, and it can get very costly, but at the end of the day, it's the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out. And from a consumer standpoint, it's very, very well done all the way across. It doesn't look like this is a brand that has just spawned. It looks like this is something that's been around for a while, and good job.
I appreciate that. And, we're very fortunate to have a great, first off, like my right hand is, my layout design guy, Chase, who, I'm continually bouncing ideas off and he's bringing them to me. And then, our website, we work with one of the best, the guy who does our site makes sites for Fear of God and a number of the brands that we mentioned, Amiri, so working with him has been a blessing to have him, on our side.
Yeah,
For sure.
and all the photos are great, dude.
Yeah, I got to thinking about that weight because I was thinking about t-shirts, which is where this all started. And it's like one of the first kind of brands that I was into as far as tees was the Alexander Wang stuff. And it's like that was a period where it was like the really silky and drapiness that everybody was after, and that's really kind of like kind of been pushed to the side for this cotton experience essentially, which now I'm all about it as well. So it's just interesting how some of that stuff can change over the years.
Well, dude, the vintage crew neck that I'm wearing is right out of the dryer. Popped it on. Don't need to steam it, anything like that. It fits exactly how I want it to. And I'm not just saying that, honestly. I'm a t-shirt head, and this fits perfectly, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's great.
So Pat, aside from Phil and I sitting here looking amazing in the t-shirts, if you could have one celebrity, spotted walking out of Erewhon with a green juice, and GQ tags it, this is the uniform vintage tee or the uniform artist tee, who is rocking your gear?
I think it for me. I think it would be Michael B. Jordan.
Okay.
Nice.
I love his style. I don't know if the artist tee is him per se, but I would love to see him in our stuff. And
okay, I'll DM him. I'll
fangirl
tell him about it.
Yeah, let him know. Yo, Phil, Barrett, was that when you were talking about Alexander Wang? Were you talking about the tee by Alexander Wang?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was like that was more of like it would have the modal blends and that type of stuff, and it was like there were a few years in there where guys wanted to be like sexier. I feel like, with that big U-neck, the U-necks and that type of stuff. They were a little longer. I'm sure, Pat. I'm sure, living in LA and having been a DJ, you've probably seen your fair share of the like the long line kind of butt tees, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's still happening as like it's like an adoption curve like anything else.
Yeah,
I think,
sure.
The people who are into more niche kind of designers now have left that.
Yeah.
For other things, but I think it's still being adopted by a large range of people.
Are there any other brands that you specifically like reach for in your closet outside of your own?
I'm pretty, these days I'm pretty homeless chic in my style. I'm like running out. I'm running out because people want to have meetings now, or they have a knit down they want us to see.
What about sneakers? What are your go-to? What are the perfect sneakers for the uniform guy?
I love Jordan 1s.
Okay.
I know it's so predictable. And then I'm still a fan of the Ultra Boost 1s. And
you got a fellow UB fan right here.
Yeah, I'm a big UB guy.
Yeah, it's so comfortable.
Yes.
And then I have some Sacai Nikes. It's sort of like the Nike
flex
runner
on
tail. It depends on what it is. What'd you say?
I said flex on them with your Sacai Nikes.
Which version do you have, Pat?
I have all three of the. I really like the white nylon ones.
Mm-hmm.
I have those. I have the black mesh, the white mesh. Those are probably my favorite. And then I don't know if you guys can hear that.
We did. Yeah,
that's perfect.
Yeah. When La Cucaracha plays, it's fruit time.
I think that means it's
little
happy
LA
hour.
flavor for you.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I have the Barney ones, which I've never worn, and I don't know why I have.
All right. So I know prior to the podcast, we talked a little bit about just like experience with the resale market, and we kind of talked about it in a different way as to like what it's become with, it's 90% sneakers at this point. Do you mess around with like are you a sneaker guy? Do you mess with StockX or Goat or anything like that? Like, or are you just you using some connections to get those Sacai's? What's your tactic?
I wish, my one of my old roommates is like a design director at Nike, and every time I breach it with him, he seems to have no idea what I'm talking about or how he could possibly get these. So I don't have any. I don't have any ends. I'm taking my L's on the sneaker app like everyone
Just like
else.
everybody else. That's yeah. You're a man of the people.
Yeah, no, keeps me grounded.
Yeah.
Um, but I try to stay. I like sneaker culture, and like being young. I was into like the Jordans as they were like coming out. It was a different experience then because it wasn't so hype, and you could walk in. When threes were the thing, or sixes, or the Looney Tunes, whatever. You could walk in and get those at any Foot Locker at your mall. So it was a different experience. But like these sneakers still have like fond memories to me. Playing dodgeball and your Jordans. But I'm not super sneaker obsessed, but I certainly keep track of the space because I think so much of it drives streetwear.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I read in Bobby Hundred's book, This Is Not a T-Shirt, which is a great book. He talks about sort of like how that evolution came to be because, back in the day, and I'm sure you and Phil remember the term metrosexual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was like had a negative connotation to it. Like if you were a man who cared at all about how you looked, you were a metrosexual.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
And it was almost like shameful. But sneakers were the first thing that men could care about on a fashion, from a fashion perspective, where it was like, oh, okay, those are sneakers. Like, oh, he just has 300 pairs of Jordans. He's not a metrosexual. He's a sneakerhead.
Mm-hmm.
So he talks about how that ties in and how that's become a cornerstone to the culture. And ultimately led to like the streetwear brands, like Stussy and the explosion of all of that. So I think it's very central to the culture. And
totally,
I'm not like, I wouldn't pay resale for things unless I really love them, but I definitely pay attention to that. And I'm a fan of what goes on there.
Yeah. I mean, you've kind of summed it up perfectly. And we, as a podcast that like dedicates a lot of time to kind of guys that are interested in becoming more stylish or like getting more into it, like it's the sneakers are always the gateway. So it's kind of why we spend so much time talking about them pretty regularly and frequently and like paying attention to drops, is because it kind of like it makes it a game. It makes it's like there's just so many aspects of it that are attractive and draw people in, and then like it's just where a lot of people kind of start with it. So it's like you said, it's definitely a big piece of it. I just was thinking about, how we kind of like had a shared experience of kind of picking up some stuff from By George here in Austin, like on liquidation. And one of the things I forgot to mention to you was that one of the things that I was using Styleform through when I worked at By George, we were carrying Guidi boots. Are you familiar?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like these, if you're not familiar, the Guidi boots are like, they're very artisanal, like all sorts of weird ass leathers, like very strange looking boots. They look like they could be from the 17 or 1800s. And there is a community that is obsessed with them.
Really?
And we carried them because our owner thought they were rad. But like nobody bought Guidi boots in Austin. And so we would inevitably have like these $1,000 boots marked 75% off. And I could flip them on Styleform to these people that were obsessed for like, much closer to retail. So it was just funny to hear you talk about like being able to occasionally kind of clean out By George of some of their good product that wasn't moving here in Austin.
That's great, dude.
But I just always remember the Guidi boots.
They're Italian, weren't they? Guidi,
yeah, Guidi. Am I saying it wrong?
I have no idea.
Yeah, but yeah, they're Italian.
I'm familiar with it, and they do look like they're from the Knights Templar sort of era. A lot of them.
And I just like pick one up and I'd be like, wait, this is made out of a horse?
It was?
Oh, they were all sorts of weird leather, man.
Yikes.
Yeah. Pat, just a few more questions for you here before we wrap it up. Thank you for being generous with your time today. Were you DJing right up until the pandemic? Was it still a part of your hustle?
Yeah, right up to the pandemic, I was DJing. I tend to space everything that happened last month. So you have to give me a minute to recollect. But I think I had 3 or 4 nights where I was DJing, and DJing was paying, all my bills. at that point. But you know, it was getting to the point where it was harder to DJ because something would happen, or you know, like Chase, our layout designer, would want to proof some things by me, and I'm, you know,
At
behind the
the club.
turntables at the club or the bar, and they're expecting me to perform, and I have my phone up looking through like these layouts that I need to okay as soon as possible. So it became more difficult, but I was DJing, and but I was also doing a little more chill gigs, like
Yeah.
some kind of sunset sessions and things like that were more vibey than a huge dance party.
So has the pandemic pushed that part of, you know, have you been sunset into an early retirement there, or will you go back to it?
I mean, I guess it remains to be seen. I don't know I think DJing might
be dead.
Kind of job like a soda jerk where it just doesn't exist, and we're telling our children about it.
That is wildly depressing if true, but I think we've all had those thoughts, so it will be pretty fascinating to see what happens there.
I'd be willing to go back for sure. You know, I love DJing. It's difficult because, you know, as a former DJ yourself, you have to stay up on a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And the music world's changed fundamentally. You know, as one of my good DJ friends says, we're in the long tail era of music. You know, there's so much more music and everyone's into their own stuff. Like everyone can exist in their own world because of Spotify or Apple Music.
Sure.
So, you know, if you like Rufus Du Sol and you've listened to every one of their albums and, you know, the live video they put out, you think every DJ should know about their entire content. And when they don't, you know, people have a tendency to, you know, overreact.
Yeah, absolutely. Phil, you got any more questions for Pat here? DJ Boo Bear?
No questions. Just good job, man, on the product. I mean, I'm looking forward to a long relationship with Uniform LA.
Yeah,
because this is good stuff, dude.
It's
good stuff.
It is. I'm ashamed of myself for not having pulled trigger earlier on some of the teas, but
this is right up my alley.
But
Pat.
now I'm here, and I'm here to stay. Pat, where can we follow the brand on Instagram? I think that we're actually going to be doing a little bit of giveaway on the gram as well. So, where should the people go to hear more about that?
Yeah, on socials, we're Uniform LA. On Instagram, there's an underscore, so it's Uniform LA _. And I'm working to get more involved at posting more frequently.
Pat, I mean, you're there. You're running this brand, this company, and I know, like, I've got a job plus this podcast, and doing social media is a lot harder than it sounds. It's very, very difficult to stay dedicated to, like, consistently publishing content that's cohesive and makes sense and is not just a total cluster. Mm-hmm. So I totally hear you on that one. It's been a struggle for this podcast as well to keep it going, but we're definitely going to do something. You and I will collaborate a little bit, but stay tuned. So you can follow the podcast at Club Cool Pod, follow Uniform on Instagram at UniformLA _, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we've got a lot to look forward to. Go check out the site. New teas coming soon at some point, and then a whole bunch more stuff. Phil and I have got to have a little experience with some of the forthcoming product, and it's all rad, man. I'm here for all of it. So
me too, man.
So stay tuned and go check out Uniform.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to the day where we can all sit down in the studio
absolutely.
together.
Once again, thank you for joining us. You know, I know we've taken up your afternoon here, so I think it's time for all of us to probably crack a beer or two.
Yes.
And
we're having a little Pinot Noir tonight.
Oh wow! Okay, all right. That sounds great. All right. Well, once again, Pat, thank you so much, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Pat. See you, man.
Later, Phil.
All right. That'll wrap it up for Club Cool today. Once again, thank you to Pat. Thank you to our sponsor, Lumen Skin. And we'll be back next week with more great content and another podcast for you.
This was great.
All righty.
Adios.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
to the club.